Hello everyone and welcome to today's live stream from the London School of English. Today we will be talking about how to present in English effectively and also with ease. Is presenting and giving speeches important for your career success? Or are you preparing for an important international conference, for example, where you need to present in English? Or do you need to feel more confident in front of a group of English-speaking clients? In today's session, we will give you practical advice on how to approach your presentations in English, how to structure them well, and what language to use to present with impact. We will also have an interactive question and answer session at the end of this live stream. So get your questions ready and please write your questions and comments in the live chat next to the video, and we will attempt to answer as many of them as we can. My name is Olga and I'm part of the London School of English team. We're joined today by two of my colleagues, Linda Stott, an expert English trainer who has taught many clients how to present effectively in English, for example, during our business and professional English courses. And we're also joined by Faiza Afzal from our client services team, who herself is an experienced presenter with plenty of presentation experience internationally. So I'm delighted to see you here today, Linda and Faiza, and very big welcome.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you, Olga. Good to be here.
Should I go ahead?
Would you like to tell a few more words and Faiza as well before we start with the main content of the presentation?
Faiza, do you want to go start?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. My name is Faiza. I'm joining from the client services team. If you've been to some of our live streams before, then you will recognize me. Otherwise, if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm looking forward to this session. And if you have any questions about our courses, I can answer those for you during the Q&A. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Linda.
Good. So my name is Linda Stott. I've been teaching English for the past 11 years. I've taught business English to clients from all over the world. For example, pilots, administrators, lawyers, farmers, doctors, politicians, architects, engineers, photographers, artists, and so on. I've taught in Italy and South Africa, and of course, here in London, where this live stream is coming to you from, live from London. So hello to everyone out there. I'd also like to, if I could, I'd also like to say hello to some of my ex-students who I know are joining us today, and also hello to Harry and Val. So I'd like to start by asking you, how comfortable are you giving a presentation or a speech? So here's an interesting statistic. 75% of people suffer from a fear of public speaking. I tend to agree with that. It certainly is high up on the list of one of the most stressful things to do in your life. And I haven't yet come across someone who, when asked to do a presentation or give a speech, said, "Yay, fantastic, whoop, whoop. I thought you'd never ask me. I just can't wait to do it." And by the way, this statistic of 75% is about speaking in public in your mother tongue. So naturally, and of course, having to do it in English will add a lot more. My aim today is to help you feel more confident and more at ease doing a presentation in English, so that when you next do a presentation, you will approach it with renewed confidence and enthusiasm. So I think a good place to start is to ask, what makes a good presentation? So what do you think makes a good presentation? These are some of the things I think make a good presentation. So enthusiasm for the subject, enthusiasm for doing the presentation. So clearly enthusiasm is important. Research shows that the attention level of the audience drops off considerably after the first 5 minutes. keep your audience interested by using stories, anecdotes, and humor with a dash of enthusiasm, of course. So firstly, I think it's important to have a clear structure. Of course, the structure and language you use will depend a lot on whether your presentation is formal or less formal. And this question of formality will depend on the industry you are in your company's culture, and so on. So in today's live stream, I'll be focusing on a more formal approach. However, you can adapt some of the language tips I'm going to give you to suit your needs. So I think we would all agree that a clear structure would have the following: an introduction or opening. And this is where you tell them, in simple terms, this is where you tell them what you're going to tell them. So signaling and signposting are an important part of a presentation. Your audience needs a map, a layout of what you're going to tell them. It'll also help you to organize your presentation in a logical way. So for instance, clearly stating your purpose at the beginning by using these adverbs: firstly, secondly, and finally. These will be useful to get your structure going. You could combine these with verbs to state your purpose. So for example, take a look at. An example sentence would be, I'm going to be taking a look at the recent boom in online sales. Another one would be bringing. I'm going to be bringing you up to date on the recent takeover. And finally, the last one would be something like highlight. I'm going to highlight what I see as the main advantages of investing in clean energy. Or you might want to use these openings such as, so this afternoon I'll begin by. And then you might go on with that and say, and then I'll go on to, and you can add whatever you want to after that. These are quite useful to get you going, because a lot of people say, oh, how do I start it? I can't think of an entry into my presentation. And these little starting up words or sentences will definitely help you to get you going on your presentation. So if we now put all of these together, the adverbs and some of these expressions, it'll look something like this. Firstly, I'm going to take a look at what makes a good presentation. Then I'll go on to highlighting some useful language. And finally, I'll be bringing you up to date on some additional tips. Of course, there's a lot. Giving a presentation is a big topic. There's lots and lots of language and expressions to use. So I'm just giving you a little taster on some of the things that you might get going with. One important point I would like to mention is questions. So it's important that you tell your audience, or at least you need to signal to them, that you are happy to take questions. And this needs to be said in the introduction. As you are giving the presentation in English, I think it might be better to say something like this: I'd be happy to take any questions at the end of my talk. So the reason why I suggest taking questions at the end of your talk is that if you don't feel confident doing your presentation in English, or being interrupted during it can cause you to lose focus and momentum. And I've often seen this where the presenter panics, they lose their way, they lose their focus, and it simply goes all downhill, and they feel that they didn't actually accomplish what they were supposed to by getting the message across. The other thing is, quite often, because you're doing the presentation in English, somebody in the audience might ask you a question, you might not understand the question, and this creates all sorts of problems. So if you're not feeling comfortable to have questions asked, it's really important to state that at the beginning. I'd be happy to take any questions at the end of my talk. However, of course, if you feel comfortable about being asked a question during the talk, you could say, feel free to ask me questions at any time during my presentation. However, the key to it is that it's important you adopt the style that suits you most and be yourself. I think that's the key, no matter what language you're doing it in. So my second point is you would need to focus on the main body of your presentation. And this is where you tell them everything that you want to tell them. Now, here's an interesting fact. The average attention span of an audience is 7 minutes. I'm hoping I haven't lost you yet before you lose them to planning your next holiday. So as I mentioned earlier, signaling and signposting is important. Signal to your audience when you're going to move onto a new point or change direction. So for instance, you could say, let's move on to talking about the impact of COVID-19 on our business. This expression will help you to make your next point, to move on to the next point. Students often say, how do I navigate my way around? How do I start my next topic? Well, this sentence will definitely help you to introduce the next part of your presentation. Another example would be, let us turn to last year's sales figures. And this would be for when you want to change direction and move in a different direction to carry on with your presentation. Another important point is this use of rhetorical questions. And they're often used to get your audience thinking and to engage them. So what is a rhetorical question? Quite simply, it's a question you ask where you don't expect the answer, but that you ask to make a point, to get your audience thinking and to engage them. So, for example, I might say, so, why are rhetorical questions important? Let me explain. You aren't going to wait for your audience to answer. And I remember once I had a student who was trying to practice in his presentation using rhetorical questions. And he stood in the front of the classroom and he was, so why am I telling you? Why? What's the answer? And of course, it wasn't correct, but he got 10 out of 10, most certainly, for trying to see how he could use these rhetorical questions. So finally, it will need a conclusion or a summary. And this is where, in simple terms, you tell them what you've already told them. And useful language could be, for instance, in conclusion, to reiterate, or to recap. It needs to be well organized and follow a logical sequence, and this structure will help you to do that. It also needs to have a good sense of timing. I remember I once watched a presentation where the speaker ran out of time towards the end of his presentation, and he was flipping through his slides and saying, oh dear, I don't have time for this one. Oh no, we're not going to look at this one. This one isn't important. And then finally he said, oh dear, we've got no time left. Well, thank you very much. So I think it's important, if you practice beforehand and you time yourself beforehand, it'll give you a good idea of how you need to compress it, what parts of your presentation you need to take out, or perhaps you might need to add things to extend the time. The other important thing is imaginative use of visual aids. So here is another interesting fact. People will remember 95%. It's an interesting statistic. 95% of what they see and hear if the visuals are vivid and imaginative. And it's also 43% more persuasive. So visuals certainly help to get your message across. The other thing that comes up quite a lot in the presentations in group classes is people often put a lot of text and maybe a small picture. And it's interesting, if the feedback from classmates or peers is often, you know, next time you do a presentation, perhaps you could focus less on so much text and put more visuals up there. And if you are going to put text up, make sure you're not reading it so that the audience is reading, but also listening to some different information as well. So while you're talking about once you've got your visuals up with your presentation, you might want to turn obviously to your screen to look at the visual, and you might want to say something like this. I'd like us to look at this part of the graph in more detail. Or you might want to say something like, I would like to draw your attention to the upper part of the chart. Or you might want to say, as you can see from this pie chart, and so on and so forth. So having these key sentences, ready prepared sentences, helps you to just feel confident in proceeding with your topic. I would also like to, is there anything else? Would you add anything else to this list? Would you give any other advice? Is there anything that you do that you feel could be useful to mention on this platform? There's a few extra bits that I'd like to add. So dedicate 70% of your time to your script. I think that's really important, is to make sure that you're happy with the content, make sure that it fits your style of who you are. So dedicate actually 70% of your time to your script. Use interesting and relevant stories and anecdotes to keep your audience interested. Remember that facts are 20 times more likely to be remembered if they are part of a story. Use the KISS approach, and KISS stands for keep it short and simple. Some people say that the KISS approach is keep it short, silly, but I think it much more positive to say keep it short and simple. Do not use long, complex sentences and difficult vocabulary. It's unlikely you will know the English level of your audience. So to reach the whole audience and get your message across, stick to the KISS approach, keep it simple. Remember, you're not there to show your excellence in English, but you're there to get a message across. Use active sentences instead of passive. It's much clearer and more powerful. So for example, if we compare these two sentences, an active sentence would be something like this. Toyota sold 10.7 million cars last year, versus a passive sentence, which would go like this. 10.7 million cars were sold by Toyota last year. And I'm sure you'll all agree that the first one, the active sentence, sounds much clearer and much more powerful. Toyota sold 10.7 million cars last year. And by the way, I Googled that and it's a true fact. So the active sentence is more powerful and easier to remember. You really don't want to be looking out at your audience and see a sea of half asleep, comatose people not understanding a word you are saying. You really don't want to be doing that to anybody. So keep it simple, KISS. So make sure you get your message across clearly. Pace yourself and use deliberate pauses to emphasize a point or to create effect. Do not be afraid to hesitate. There is nothing worse than watching a presentation where the speaker talks so fast and without pauses, and then it's all over and you haven't even sat down yet. Think carefully about your audience, what works and what doesn't. Take your time. Get that message across. Practice doing the presentation. You might want to record it. And the reason why I suggest this, it could be useful when you replay it, because you're doing it in English, just to get a sense of where you're not feeling comfortable, pronunciation issues, etc., etc. I think it could be good. If you can, try and practice it with a forgiving person. There is a really good application called Nano Teleprompter. You upload your presentation and you choose the pace, the speed at which you want the text to scroll. And it's a great way to practice beforehand, and obviously also to use in your presentation itself. Of course, being a business English teacher in groups and also one-to-one, I would say that if presentation skills are something that you do need help with, I would strongly recommend joining a course to learn and to practice. Our courses, we focus on your specific needs. The teacher gives direct and individual feedback. And most importantly, you have the opportunity to practice giving your presentation in front of your classmates. So you have access to an international audience. And very often at the end of the session, when you've done your presentation, your classmates give you feedback. And there's nothing better than that. Most people say they absolutely love it. They go away and they just feel so confident and boosted. And it's just the best thing, really. I remember I taught a lovely Japanese businessman recently, and he was so anxious about doing the weekly presentations. And although they were good, his confidence in using English held him back a bit. However, by the end of the 6-week course, his confidence had grown considerably, so much so that I suggested he give his presentation to the whole school, something which we hadn't done before. Usually you just give the presentation to the group. But because he gave the presentation on that Friday morning and it was so good, I felt that I wanted him to have the opportunity to present it to the whole school in the morning break. And he agreed, and what a success he was. At the end of his presentation, the entire school broke out in rapturous applause, and there wasn't a dry eye amongst all the teachers that had taught him. He was so happy, and we were so proud of him. And I'm sure when he returned, he got that promotion. Olga Pfizer, do you remember that?
Yes, no, I remember that very well. We have these Leever ceremonies where all of our students come together and we kind of give them certificates and celebrate them finishing our courses. And it was such a beautiful moment to also celebrate his journey and his success.
Absolutely.
I remember specifically as well that there was a moment in the presentation where he had to kind of stop and collect himself.
Yes.
And you know, we were all there. And
Yeah.
we were all sort of rooting for him, being like, it's okay, you've got this.
Yeah.
And because he'd been at the school for so many weeks, I also spoke to one of his other trainers, and they were just so proud because they were he was saying all the things that you'd mentioned. So she was just like, and he did the signaling here and the signposting here, and this is where he used firstly and to conclude. So it was just such a beautiful way to celebrate his success and see it all applied for all of us, and so exceptionally brave of him to do that and have it be received so well. So we hope he kind of took that confidence with him.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I remember that presentation also. And what I was,
because you filmed it, didn't you?
Yeah. And it was very impressive because this was pretty much at the level of the very fluent English speaker, and also entertaining and very interesting to hear and to watch. So yeah. That's a great testament, of course, to our clients who study really hard and to our trainers.
Absolutely, very committed.
Yeah, definitely.
Very committed to the whole program.
Mm-hmm. I also would like to point out that we have quite a few familiar faces and the new faces on the live stream. Hello, Tanya. Hello, Jufran, and hello, Ming.
Unfortunately, I can't see any of the of the comments.
Angelica.
There! Oh my gosh! Hello, everybody. Inigo. And sorry, I had my live comments turned off. Tanya, Jufran. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was sorry.
No, but
hi, everybody.
Lots of really good comments. Say, for example, to your question, Linda, on what makes good presentation. Jufran is saying good presentation, in his opinion, is about fluency, clarity, logic, and of course entertainment.
Absolutely, Jufran. I absolutely 100% agree with you on that. Absolutely.
And of course,
just Jufran also asks what application Nano. Yes, it's called Nano teleprompter. I don't know if you could put that up on the banner if it's too late.
Of course, we can put this in the live stream comments. Nano teleprompter.
Nano teleprompter, yeah.
That's one
You
word.
can use it on, yes. No, so nano and then teleprompter.
Okay.
You can use these, you can use it on your mobile, and you can actually also use it on your laptop or your computer. And I did a lot of research about what was the correct, the best one to use. And I tried out various ones, and I found that nano teleprompter was the most user-friendly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And we have Frank Kuntz. Hello, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Frank. Good to see you.
And
Wow.
Tanya, of course, is saying hello. Linda is always like,
Hi, Tanya.
yeah.
Wow, so many lovely people.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, there are several.
He's made a good point here as well. Coherence of
Yeah.
thoughts is a must in
Yeah.
a presentation. Absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
helps to
Hi,
keep
Angelica.
the focus as well, I think.
Beg your pardon?
Because it helps to keep the focus if there's a coherent message.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you may not remember. I think Tanya was making that point a little bit earlier, saying, I guess good presentations are memorable when a week later your audience can still remember much of what you said. So
Absolutely.
very well put.
Yeah, absolutely. And brilliant English. Yeah.
And
Good.
I can see that several of our viewers, of course, are talking about the case of nerves and the comfort with presentations in general. For example, Tanya Joufran is saying this. So how actually to make sure that you think fast in English without translating from your native language to English during presentations. But I guess, Linda, you've actually covered quite a bit of this during the presentation in terms of simpler vocabulary when you need to and kind of making sure that you speak at a comfortable pace. So some of those.
Yeah, and I think also the really important thing is to make sure that you have a script. Because this focuses your attention, and you could always ask somebody to, who's got a good level of English, to have a look at it to make sure that the grammar and everything's good. But I think the key thing is, people often get stuck on these sort of issues, but actually at the end of the day, it's about getting your message across. And if you have these clear structures, and if you have the startup language, because most people, even with emails, sometimes people say, oh, I know what I want to say, but I don't know how to get in. I don't know how to start the email. Or I don't know how to start the presentation. So I think if you have this key language, it gives you a thing, and suddenly you think, oh, now I can go. Now I know what I'm going to be doing. And you go on from there, But I think the key thing is simple language, simple vocabulary. You're not trying to show off the fact that advanced or proficient in English. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get your message across. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah. And that's we quite often have people who, for example, come to train with us because they specifically need to deliver presentations effectively in English. And of course, this is part of our business and professional English courses. So quite often the question that we get is, how does the presentation training actually works in your business and professional English courses? What can I expect? So Linda, Faiza, would you like to say a few words about this?
Sure. So with our business and professional English course, usually because it's in small group sizes, we would ask the group as well, like, what would you like to cover? One of the areas we can cover is related to presentations. And typically what you then do is prepare a presentation to deliver at the end of the week. During the week, you'll be putting together the content. You'll get feedback and input from your trainer. And then typically on that Friday morning, you'll deliver the presentation. So
sorry, if I can just add something, just because I'm sure people say, oh my God, a presentation. So usually we wouldn't expect, obviously there isn't time to do a whole presentation. So normally each client gets between 10 to 15 minutes, probably max 15 minutes to actually do the presentation so that everybody in the group gets an opportunity to do a presentation. So it's a mini presentation, just practicing. I think anything more than 10 or 15 minutes is too much while you're in the process of learning, but it's to build your confidence. And then, of course, when you go away, you've got this massive takeaway of information. And as I said, I've just given you a minute little taster. Of course, there's much more. Sorry, Faiza.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think Frank here was asking, can we use this kind of presentation for an interview? And yes, I mean, it can depend on the role you're interviewing for. In some jobs, for example, they do ask for a presentation. So I've done a lot of my career in sales and marketing, and you're often asked as part of the presentation, as part of the interview process, sorry, to do a presentation. As Linda said, it's bite-sized, so it's not too long, but it allows you to do like a practice of, okay, how do I decide what I want to say? As Linda mentioned, kind of like what is firstly, what is secondly, what is in conclusion, what are some of the things I want to signal when I'm speaking? And then that opportunity also to just speak for 10 minutes or 15 minutes in English to help improve your fluency. You know, for some of our clients, maybe the nature of their job means that they don't have to do presentations. So they might not cover it, but for some, it's actually a good opportunity just to practice that fluency. Otherwise, I would say in most jobs, you always have to, at some point, explain something.
Yes.
Describe a concept, get buy-in from somebody, for example, if you're working at a senior level, or you know, just helping with that fluency. So having it structured in the way of a presentation can help you in communicating in other areas too.
Yeah, I think an important point to mention is that sometimes we get some high-level clients, and maybe, you know, CEOs or whatever it actually is, and they quite often they would say, you know, I don't actually need to, you know, to do a presentation. I've got sort of other people that would do that for me. I've got more important things to do. So it's important to note that it's interesting because initially people say, oh, no, I don't want to do it because this is my role. And then later on, when they see the energy of the group and everybody else going, oh, wow, I'm going to do a presentation. Oh, so, and then eventually they go, oh, God, if I don't do it, I'm not going to be part of the group. You know, I'm going to lose out on that group feeling. And then, of course, everybody else in the group is saying, come on, you do it with us. We'll do it together. And so the group is actually really great because everybody works so well together. It's almost like you're part of one company in that week that or 6 weeks, or, you know, it's like you're part of this organization together and everybody helps each other and supports each other. So it's a fantastic atmosphere. However, sorry, carry on.
No, I agree. Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things we've often heard from our clients, that they've really enjoyed that networking opportunity. And there's something comfortable about learning with people who are in the same situation, because you can learn as much from your peers as you can from a teacher. And I think with the small sizes we have, you still always have a very good opportunity to have that input from your trainer. I mean, we do one-to-one as well. And so that is great for that kind of specific needs if you have something that you want to prepare for. So
I just wanted to say that Tanya made a good point. She said, when we lose our shyness, I believe that we perform better in presentations. Tanya, you are absolutely right about that. And I don't think it's so much the shyness, but more that if you're prepared and that you've done the work and you've prepared your script and you've practiced and you've researched your topic and you know what it is that you want to say, automatically you're pushed by that motivation and that confidence. Because you're so well prepared. But sure, it is a hurdle to get over if you are shy. But it's a very good point. It's a very good point.
And just wanted to kind of get back a little bit to Frank's question again about the preparing for the interview. We actually do have a live stream coming up on Tuesday.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
With Faiza and Linda, where they would share with you advice on how to use the most effective English language, but also what those questions actually mean in the English-speaking world, because Linda and Faiza, with her great experience in interviewing a lot of people, so lots of international interviews. So please do join us at the same time at 5:30 on Tuesday next week. And we have a couple of we have a question from Jufran, Faiza and Linda, that
Sure.
I'm hoping we can answer, which is, does accent modification program really work, and how long can we take to get the results?
Yeah, it definitely works. How long can we get the results? It's a difficult thing to answer, because it depends on how much you're struggling with your pronunciation. Because remember, pronunciation really is about the movement of the mouth. So in each language, you tend to move your mouth or your tongue in a particular way. And in English, we use all aspects we use the jaw, we use the mouth, we use the lips, we use the tongue, much more than in most other languages. So it depends on how comfortable you are in adapting to this change in movement within your mouth. However, I have to say that it will definitely help you.
Yeah.
But how long?
I mean, from our experience, I think from our experience with some of our clients, it depends on what you're looking to achieve. As Linda said, a lot of it is physical. So it's training yourself and your muscles and your brain to work in a particular way. So however long that might take you. But, we have clients that do training for like 5, 10, or 15 hours, and maybe it's split over 4 to 6 or 8 weeks. And it's kind of like a gradual process. And you just keep working on it, basically, to adjust. And accents are also quite adaptable. So for even for me, for example, I grew up with more of a neutral accent. And then after living in Canada, I came with a Canadian stamp. So it can also change. And again, when you're working on it, it's just recognizing that it won't be overnight, that you'll wake up and you'll sound completely different. It's very gradual, but you'll get there eventually.
And I think also the important point is that often people say, well, I want to speak like an English mother tongue speaker. It's like, well, you're Russian or you're Italian or whatever nationality you are, you're always going to speak English, potentially with with that accent coming through, because that's your mother language. So what the thing with pronunciation is that you want to be able to pronounce the word so that the person can understand you. And whether you're using it in a perfect English accent, fantastic if you can, but it's not a problem if you're not. The key thing is that you get the message through, you get the words through. I think that's more important than trying to speak like an English person would.
Yeah,
and there are many English accents too. So
exactly.
Like there's just a whole host of things. And to be honest, the majority of our clients that we help, it's about exactly as Linda said, that clarity. Can people understand you? And what you're trying to say? And it's beautiful to hear it all in different accents and sounds.
Yes,
so,
exactly. We need all of that diversity.
Yeah. And of course, it's very unique to the individual as well. So, for example, if you have particular needs, then we can discuss those. For example, when it comes to voice and accent training that we deliver, and you can find more information, of course, on our site. Or if you want to prepare for your business and professional presentations, and then, of course, then you can also find this information on our site as well, on the link shown here.
Sorry to interrupt. Tanya makes a good point. She says in Brazil's natural language, Portuguese, we don't move the tongue when speaking, so I find it difficult. Absolutely. There are a lot of languages where you don't move the tongue and you often talk like this and keep the mouth. So no disrespect to anybody, but it's just, that's the truth of it.
Yeah. I think
it takes a lot of training and exercise to excuse me, to actually change the way that you used to.
Yeah. I was just going to point out that Douglas's live stream that he did recently was all highlighting that kind of those pronunciation exercises for native Portuguese speakers, and it's to do with the fact that some sounds don't exist in certain languages. So there's and even I think on our YouTube channel as well, Olga mentioned this during that live stream, we have it for different accents, and it's just training like you would do a sport, for example. Like you just get your muscles used to it, and it's gradual, and all of it can sound great. So it's just a question of, as you say, like if you can be clear and get the message across.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I think on this note, we just need to wrap up our live stream. Thank you so much for all of the questions and your comments. And we hope that you would continue learning English, and that you today feel more confident and comfortable and at ease with your upcoming presentations. But if you have any questions on training, do get in touch with us via our website or via email address, which is shown here on the screen as well.
I just want, if I could just say a couple of things. I just want to acknowledge Sepida. She's an ex-student of mine. I just want to say hi, Sepida. Thank you so much for your wonderful comments. Can I add something just to conclude?
Sure.
Is that okay? Yeah. So
yes, of course.
The key thing is always use words and expressions that you find easy to pronounce and remember. So if you have a word in your presentation that's difficult to pronounce, take it out and replace it with something that's much easier for you. And the key to all of this is to just be yourself is the key. Yeah. But to conclude, the ability to present well is a crucial professional skill and a crucial life skill. And not only can it help you to influence decision makers and stakeholders, but it can also help you in getting that promotion you've wanted, that job, that new job, the things you want both personally and professionally. I just wanted to thank everyone that's come on. Thank you for everybody for listening. Thank you to my ex-students for supporting me and joining this live stream. And also especially thank you to you, Olga, for organizing and motivating, and to you as well, Faiza. Grateful to you both.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah. And thank you, Linda and Faiza, for this ever valuable advice that you give continuously on the live streams as well. On that note, do have a very good day, evening, or night after this live stream. We hope that you're keeping safe and well. And Faiza, would you like to add anything else? Or
no? Thank you for joining us. You'll see us next week where we talk about careers and interviews.
That's on Tuesday, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
If you want to stay connected with us, please subscribe to this channel because we have a lot of great content as well as the live streams. If you have any questions at all, contact us at clients@London School. We'd love to welcome you to our courses or answer any questions that you might have. So we're very happy to help. And yes, thank you for staying awake.
Yes, exactly.
It's 11:30 for Jifran, so thank you. But yes, it's always lovely to see the familiar faces. And I can say, one of the things that Linda was talking about presenting is you feel nervous and you feel you can get a little bit. Nerves are good, but one thing that does make us feel a lot more comfortable is to see these familiar faces that join us every time. So thank you for that, and we appreciate it.
And also thank you, Inigo, for watching and for supporting me in your comments. Really appreciate that.
Okay.
Great. And on that note, see you next time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cheerio.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.